let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating case study that puts Nike's green marketing claims to the test against their actual corporate practices. Because let's face it, in today's market, just making a killer sneaker, it isn't enough anymore. We want the brands we wear to actually care about the planet. So this research paper looks under the hood of the world's biggest sports brand to ask, is Nike's eco-friendly image rooted in reality, or is it just brilliant marketing? Here's a quick roadmap of what we're covering today. First, the green branding yardstick. Then, Nike's sustainability playbook, building the brand engine, accusations and greenwashing claims, and finally, the final verdict. Let's get started with Section 1, the green branding yardstick, establishing the academic metrics. So to actually evaluate a brand, the researcher uses two key academic metrics. The first one is green transparency. Basically, this measures whether a brand's behind-the-scenes practices honestly match the eco-friendly values they advertise. It's asking a pretty demanding question. Are you truly sincere inside and out? And do your hidden supply chains actually reflect your public promises? This second metric is green consistency. You can kind of think of this as corporate athletic stamina. It evaluates if a company actually sticks to its environmental guns year after year, embedding these values into their long-term business strategy rather than just running a brief, flash-in-the-pan PR sprint. With these clear yardsticks in hand, we have to ask the big question, right? How does a multi-billion-dollar juggernaut like Nike actually score? This is a brand that has literally been a market leader since 1964 by constantly reinventing itself. Let's see how they apply these concepts in the real world. Moving right along to Section 2, Nike's Sustainability Playbook, Strategies for a Greener Future. Let's look at how Nike built this massive green playbook to transform its operations. A brilliant example of this is the Nike Grind program. They literally recycle old post-consumer shoes into flooring, weights, and even baseball fields. By repurposing unused parts like midsole foam, Nike hits two birds with one stone. They slash manufacturing costs while keeping massive amounts of synthetic materials out of our landfills. Pretty smart. And you know, Nike didn't just keep this mindset to themselves. Take a look at the interface of their Making app. Launched back in 2013, it really empowered independent product designers. The app scores materials based on their environmental footprint, looking at chemistry, energy, water, and waste. It was actually so successful, it became integrated into design college curriculums over in the US and the UK. All of these tools funnel directly into Nike's highly structured Move to Zero strategy. And the 2025 targets? They are absolutely massive. We're talking about eliminating 500,000 tons of greenhouse gas emissions, diverting 100% of supply chain waste from landfills, with 80% being recycled right back into the system, and slashing fresh water usage by 25% per kilogram. It's a highly, highly ambitious corporate commitment. All right, Section 3, Building the Brand Engine, the anatomy of Nike's image. So how exactly does Nike sell this whole green image to us? Well, the case study divides their branding strategy into two distinct groups. First, you have the implicit heart and soul assets. These are internal, abstract things like their competitive pricing, market positioning, and that classic rugged brand personality. Then you have the explicit touch and feel assets. These are the external things we actually interact with every day, like their core values, the iconic swoosh logo, and of course, the legendary "Just Do It" slogan. Take a look at this classic ad. It perfectly shows how Nike leverages its brand personality. As consumers, we want to see ourselves as outdoorsy, daring, and tough. By featuring disabled athletes or heavily supporting women's sports leagues, Nike builds a powerful implicit asset. They project an image of equality and motivation that resonates so deeply with our own desire for social responsibility. Which brings us to Section 4, Accusations and Greenwashing Claims, the reality check. But to maintain our academic neutrality here, we really have to flip the coin and examine the historical controversies the research highlights. Tracking their record chronologically reveals some pretty significant baggage. In the 1990s, they faced heavy accusations regarding sweatshops and unsafe working conditions. Then, in March 2017, Nike blocked independent NGO access to factory standards. Fast forward to the early 2020s, and there were claims of using Uzbek cotton linked to forced labor. And most recently, in May 2023, Nike was hit with a massive 47-page class action lawsuit alleging their Move to Zero apparel was falsely tagged as sustainable when it was actually made from non-biodegradable plastics. These mounting controversies had a very real, quantifiable impact. fact. Shockingly, they dragged Nike's Fashion Transparency Index score down to just 41 to 50% in 2023. This right here is exactly where we see a massive hit to their academic score for green transparency. Finally, Section 5, the final verdict, scoring Nike's strategy. Bringing it all back to our initial metrics, what is the researchers' final verdict? Well, the study impartially concludes that while Nike is highly consistent, their ethical credibility actually fluctuates severely. In essence, they score incredibly high on green consistency. They continually invest in green apps and long-term targets. But they really stumble on green transparency, as their concealed practices occasionally contradict their inspiring brand messaging. Which leaves us with this final thought for today's explainer. As socially conscious consumers, how do we weigh a brand's brilliant long-term green marketing against a fluctuating reality of ethical transparency? Can a brand be truly sustainable if its inner workings don't always align with the swoosh on the box? It is a fascinating tension between the image we buy into and the practices actually happening behind closed doors.